Welcome to another episode of the Jampack Report, today for Monday, January the 4th of 2021, the first episode of the new year. Of course, this is a daily gaming news podcast meant to bring you the hottest news you need to know from around the industry, hosted on YouTube and podcast services around the world 5 days a week. It is your one-stop shop for everything you need to know. So if you enjoy the show and if you're looking for a new show to add to your roster during the new year, hit that subscribe button and keep coming back for more. Of course, I do hope you all stayed safe, stayed healthy, and found some time to get some good games in over the holiday season. And if you did, congratulations, because there's an entirely new slate of new titles, new projects, and new opportunities ahead in the new year. And of course, one of the biggest opportunities for Xbox is through their new Bethesda acquisition, which Phil Spencer says is going to be critical to Xbox's progress. Head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, has said he believes that Bethesda's development teams will be, quote, very, very critical, end quote, to the future of the platform. Microsoft announced its intention to acquire ZeniMax Media and its game publisher Bethesda Softworks for $7.5 billion in September, with the deal expected to be completed in early 2021. Discussing Xbox's plans for the year in a new Xbox podcast, Spencer said he was excited to finally complete the acquisition, quote, so that we can start working like one company. I'm excited about 2021, and Bethesda is an important part of that, he said. 2021 is when we'll get final approval. I feel really good about that. Everything is on track. We'll start then really getting to some of the planning that we can do with them. Right now, we're really hands-off with them as they continue to do the work that they're doing because we don't own them yet. Reflecting on the deal's surprise announcement last September, Spencer said he was glad to see the positive reaction from Xbox fans. And probably more important to me right now is the Bethesda teams, because those teams are going to be very, very critical to our progress going forward, he said. I can't wait to get it closed so that we can start working like one company. I'm incredibly excited about Starfield and a lot of other things, some announced and some not announced, that they are working on. I just think they're going to be an incredible addition to our studios, end quote. Microsoft's acquisition of ZeniMax Media will see Xbox game studios grow from 15 to 23 development teams. Employing some 2,300 staff worldwide, Bethesda Softworks studios include Bethesda Game Studios, ZeniMax Online Studios, id Software, Arcane, Machine Games, Tango Gameworks, AlphaDog, and Roundhouse Studios. When I think about our RPG capability with Obsidian, In Exile, the work that Playground is doing, which is now out there with Fable, and with what Bethesda can do, it's massive capability, Spencer said. I think about our FPS capability with id, 343, and the work that we can do. It doubles the size of our first-party studios when Bethesda joins, which is pretty amazing to think about. He added, and geography. I think about where they are, which is an important thing because I want to have teams from different places in the world. Following the acquisition announcement, Spencer said Microsoft would honor existing PS5 exclusivity agreements Bethesda has in place for games like Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. However, Xbox's chief financial officer Tim Stewart claimed in November that Microsoft wants future Bethesda games to be either first or better or best on Xbox platforms. Now, of course, if you want to catch up on this entire story, there are plenty of episodes of the show that you can go back to and fill your need. When it comes to today's story, I think this is just further solidifying how important Bethesda is going to be in the future of Xbox, but the question of what exactly is going to happen with Bethesda games on Xbox platforms remains up in the air. Now, of course, going back to that Tim Stewart statement, the first or better or best statement, none of those have exclusivity anywhere near them. So that alludes to the idea that there aren't going to be many, if any, Xbox exclusives coming from the Bethesda team. Now, of course, Phil Spencer has also said during the acquisition period, whenever that was first announced, that you would see each game approached on a case-by-case basis. So that also leaves this up in the air. And yet again, you see this statement that the games from Bethesda and the teams from Bethesda are going to be critical to Xbox's progress. And they talk about the value they bring with RPGs and to the FPS genre. How are they going to use this remains to be seen. We're going to have to wait and see what their plan is. And I think that really, you're not going to be seeing the impact of Xbox's acquisition of Bethesda for a while. Because again, as Spencer says here, they are waiting until the final approval is done and then they can start planning. There isn't anything even in the works right now. Now, of course, I'm sure there are plans on the back end. They have an idea, otherwise they would not have spent $7.5 billion on Bethesda, or I really should say ZeniMax Media. But when it comes to an actionable set of sequences that you'll see roll out and impact your gaming habits immediately, I think the only thing you can expect is more Bethesda games on Game Pass, and then really you'll have to wait and see with games like Starfield and Elder Scrolls how Xbox and Microsoft are planning to approach this new era of their existence with Bethesda as part of the family. But Phil Spencer is very excited, and if you do want to listen to that full podcast, you can head over to the Xbox Major Nelson podcast over here if you do want to check that out on YouTube and podcast services around the world. But according to a new interview, Team Ninja will announce several new titles this year, and Nioh is seemingly done. Speaking to Famitsu, Team Ninja producer Fumihiko Yasuda states that the development of the Nioh series will reach a resting point after 7 long years of development. As a note, they're presumably counting the time between developing Nioh to the release of the final DLC for Nioh 2 and or the upcoming remaster bundle. I'll be sad to see it go, the author says, but if they want to hang it up, they have done right by the series. That said, 4Gamer also had the chance to chat with Team Ninja, and there are allegedly exciting things in store for 2021. Yasuda tells the outlet they are preparing to announce several new titles from the studio this year, and to look forward to them. So based on Yasuda's prior comments, none of them will likely be Nioh related. This uncertain future is kind of thrilling, the author writes, but they hope to continue building on Nioh's success. Team Ninja is incredibly talented, and I wanted to point this out because right now in January, we're in a bit of a lull. Of course, you have a big game coming up, The Medium, which is pretty much the big release for January, and then things begin to ramp up in February and March and so forth. But January is kind of a time of anticipation. And so, now is the time to look forward to what is coming in the year ahead, and Team Ninja certainly is one of the biggest developers out there after the success of Nioh, because while it might not have been my cup of tea, Nioh and Nioh 2 remain favorites within the community, and so I know plenty of people out there are wondering what the team is up to, and it looks like they have some news on the way. But The Last Guardian developer also has something up its sleeve as they post teaser art for its next game. The Last Guardian developer Jin Design has released artwork for its next game via a 2021 greeting card. Jin Design was formed in 2014 by former members of Team Ico, the PlayStation Japan team Fumito Ueda helmed or critically acclaimed projects Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. Jin Design's next team will be one of the first published by Epic Games' new publishing label, alongside projects from Remedy and Playdead. In an announcement video published in March of last year, Epic said its publishing label would offer the most developer-friendly terms in the industry so that creators can focus on making great games. Fumito Ueda said of the deal, quote, "Since we have gone indie and opened a studio, I want to be able to reach more players than before." Jin Design teased its upcoming project once before via a website teaser published in 2018. The same year, Ueda told Famitsu that the unannounced project would rival the scale of his previous titles. "What we are making now doesn't feel like an indie game. We're ultimately aiming for something on the scale of Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and The Last Guardian," Ueda said. "If larger scale development becomes an interest to us, then I think we will significantly expand our development system and take it to a large scale development team to make it a big game. This will be a completely new title, not a sequel." In November, a Bloomberg report claimed that Ueda's former employer, Sony Japan, was being increasingly sidelined as the corporation placed more importance on the US market. PlayStation's Japan studio, which co-developed games such as Bloodborne, Astro's Playroom, and The Last Guardian, has reportedly seen the rolling contracts of many of its creators not renewed and developer support teams reduced by as much as a third from their peak. So, again, as we reported on throughout November, very disappointing to see the Japan studio production begin to slowly wind down, even though Sony has said they are not losing focus in their original home territory. But Sony Japan seems to be losing its grip, and it seems like it was a good idea for Ueda to come and make this new company. So with Jin Design developers working on a next big game coming and published by Epic, this is something that I think think expands the horizon, because before you saw them locked to the PlayStation world, and now you see the potential to do so much more. Very exciting to see them reach new audiences, whether it's on the Epic Games Store or perhaps it's published across platforms, Microsoft and Nintendo. It just seems like something that has a limitless amount of possibility, and I'm excited to see what the team comes up with, because if you have not played Shadow of the Colossus, it is so good, and you very well could, because Shadow of the Colossus has been remastered by the team at Bluepoint. So dive in if you have a PlayStation 4, a PS4 Pro, or a PS5, and give that game a good play. Now, that is not to say that Ico and The Last Guardian aren't good, but for my personal taste, Shadow of the Colossus seems to stick out the most and absolutely deserves to be played by as many people as possible. But Gen Design has a lot of news coming, and of course, if you do want to check out that image in full, you can see a little snippet of it right there. But while it could just be some concept art, it certainly looks like something I would be interested in learning more about. Now, speaking of the PlayStation 4 and the PS4 Pro, some PlayStation 4 models have reportedly been discontinued. The PlayStation 4 has had a good long run. First launched in 2013, Sony's previous next-gen console has undergone a few minor iterations and at least 2 variants under its name. With the launch of the PlayStation 5, disastrous as it may have been, the clock has started ticking for the PlayStation 4. According to at least one retailer in Sony's home country, the console's time has finally come and will no longer be restocked once supplies run out, at least for certain models. The unconfirmed report does not exactly come as a surprise, but the timing is still puzzling. Some might consider it extremely premature, considering the PlayStation 5 has not been out in the market for even a year, and in comparison, the PlayStation 3 was officially discontinued in 2017, 4 years after the PS4 debuted. Complicating matters is the current state of PS5 supplies. Right from day one, getting a hold of a PlayStation 5 unit has been more of a hassle than it should have been. Production was already reportedly low in the first place, but uncoordinated pre-order dates, bots, and scalpers have made it almost impossible to get a console through official channels and legitimate means. That said, Sony has not confirmed what Japanese retailers have allegedly claimed, and those reports affect only specific PS4 models. To be specific, the PS4 500GB Glacier White, the PS4 1TB Jet Black, the PS4 1TB Glacier White, the PS4 2TB Jet Black, and the PS4 Pro 1TB Glacier White are the ones that will supposedly be out of stock forever because the manufacturer has stopped production. Sony itself briefly alluded to this just last month when it said that it no longer plans to restock the PS4 Pro in the future. That statement was eventually removed, although that does not mean it won't be happening this month or soon, and you can expect some more surprising resellers to pump prices because of this still unconfirmed news. So this is a complicated issue, and I think that you might not necessarily be seeing as much of an immediate decline as this article alludes to, because right now, so many people are still staying at home because of COVID-19, and it makes sense to keep a cheaper alternative on the market. The traditional order of events is that the new console drops, incredibly expensive, the hardcore of the hardcore go out and buy it. Then, the older hardware sees a steep price drop and it kind of becomes the entry-level hardware. So instead of paying $500 for a disc PlayStation 5, you can pay $200 for a PlayStation 4, and while it might not have the capabilities of a PlayStation 5, it's still good enough to play all of the games that came out last gen, and for those that are just stuck at home waiting for the world to return to a sense of normalcy, that fits the bill and doesn't really break the bank. But I think that is still something that could be implemented here, because they could just streamline production and minimize how many of these different console variants they're creating, and then reallocate those resources into making PlayStation 5s. Now, if you look at the PlayStation 5, it seems to be one that is begging people to upgrade because of the fact that there is just so much more capability. Developers aren't going to be able to continue porting games to the PlayStation 4 forever. They are eventually going to have to take the leap and start using this new hardware to its fullest potential, and to do that, you have to have enough players on board. That's where I think the PlayStation 4 discontinuation comes in, because again, that's a $400 console in and of itself. Generally, you can find them for between $299 and $399, but ultimately, it was priced at $400 when it launched. So, if they maintained that MSRP, then you still have a console that's the same price as the digital PlayStation 5, and the majority of people that are saving up for a PS4 Pro might as well just wait, save up an extra $100, and go get a PlayStation 5 disc if they want that route. On top of that, even if they discontinued the variants of the PlayStation 4 Pro and even kept that one on the market at $299 and made it the budget high-end console, you would still much rather just save up a couple of $100 and get a PlayStation 5. Why not? And so I kind of understand their logic here, but it still seems to be very, very soon to be talking about a discontinuation. So I don't think it's going to be widespread, but I think instead of a discontinuation, you're going to be seeing a streamlining of what consoles Sony is actually producing. I think you'll see one base PlayStation 4 console that they focus on for the next 4 to 5 years, and then you see the entire embracing of the PlayStation 5 ecosystem. But with that being said, I love the PlayStation 4, one of the best consoles of all time, huge fan of it, and if you do find one laying around, hey, give it a shot, there are plenty of good games on it. But that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed today's show, drop me a like down below and let me know what you think about everything we talked about here today, but specifically, how do you feel about the Bethesda deal now that we are in the year it's actually happening? Just a couple of months away. Would love to hear what you have to say. But until tomorrow, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon, and peace.